Today we're going to add some shadows and highlights to our robot. Now to begin, I'm going to add the darkest shadows with Sharpie. So maybe in here around the teeth, maybe the pupils of my eyes, areas that I want to be super black, I'm going to be using this tool. We're going to be doing some medium values with charcoal, and charcoal doesn't really work super well in teeny tiny little areas like this. So if you have some teeny tiny details that you want to be black, you will want to color that in with Sharpie marker. So I'll get my pupils colored in, and anything else that's small that I want to be black. I'm also going to go ahead and color in the right side of my robot's head, because I'm going to make the right side of my robot be in shadow so that he looks a little bit more three-dimensional. And I want this to be really, really dark. I'm also going to color in the right side of my robot's body. Now that my darkest values are done, I'm going to use a little piece of charcoal to do some medium values. Now with this charcoal, I'm going to look for anything on my robot that I want to make it look like it's three-dimensional, like it's popping out. For example, maybe these little buttons that I put on my robot's body are popping out. Maybe the eyes are popping out from the face. Now, since this is a flat piece of paper, if I want it to actually look three-dimensional, I'm going to use this charcoal to put a shadow underneath some of these items so it looks like they're popping out. For example, if you have some round buttons, I'm going to put kind of a curved shadow on the bottom part of that button. And I'm just barely rubbing with the charcoal. Charcoal can be really, really messy and dusty if you push hard. So I'm just sort of barely putting a little bit on. I'm also going to put a little under my eyes here. Barely touching. Now that doesn't really look like much yet. That's because the magic of charcoal really happens when you blend it. So we have some towels that we can use for this, and you're just going to take a little dry piece of paper towel, and I like to kind of fold it up sometimes into a little point, and you can use this as a blending tool to blend out some of your shadows. Sometimes artists like to use a blending finger also, so it's just kind of up to you. And as you can see, when you use your finger in some of these areas, it really makes it actually look like a shadow underneath some of these areas. I might put a little bit on the neck, so it looks like the neck is kind of in shadow there underneath that big robot head. Maybe underneath the body, I'm gonna rub just a little shadow so it looks like his legs are kind of in shadow underneath the body. And these medium values are really making my robot look three-dimensional. Now another place that really makes a big difference is if you put a shadow on the arms and legs. Now in my picture, since my shadow is on the right-hand side of my head and body, I want to put shadows on the right-hand sides of all my objects. If you put shadows in all random places of your robot, it's not going to make sense. So since I'm doing shadows on the right, I'm going to do the same thing on my legs. I'm just going to make a little tiny area of charcoal on each oval shape of the legs, and then when I blend it to the left, it really makes it look three-dimensional. Same thing on the arms, just a little area of black on the right-hand side, and when you blend it, it really looks 3D. Don't worry if you get outside the lines a little bit, because we will be cutting our robot out later. I'm just going to keep on going, putting shadows on the left-hand side until I'm happy with my picture. When I'm done using the charcoal, I'm going to try to clean my hands off really, really well so that I don't smudge my paper. I sort of did a little bit of smudging on purpose because I wanted my robot to look kind of rough and rugged like Banksy's did. but now that I'm done with that, I really want my hands to be clean. Because the final step is going to be adding some white, shiny highlights to our robot to make him look like he's really made of metal. Now we're just gonna be using a paintbrush and some white tempera paint for this. And the secret to doing your highlights is you want to add them in just tiny little dots. So anywhere that is sticking out that you think might catch the light, you might put a little dot of highlight. Like maybe the top part of these buttons, maybe these eyes that we decided were sticking out, maybe on this little bump thingy up here, and maybe on some of these little bumps that make up the legs. If you want to add a little dot of white, it can really make it look like he's made out of metal. Now notice how small my dots are. I'm not really using a whole lot of white paint on this, because if you go crazy with it, it's gonna look weird. They're not gonna look like little pinpoints of highlight shininess. It will just kind of make your project a little confusing. So the secret to highlights is just use tiny little dots. And I might even add a couple little shiny parts on my shiny little spray can there. And that's about it. I don't really need to add too much. Maybe on my teeth. Once again, just tiny little dots. And I'm just gonna keep on going until I'm happy with my robot. When I'm done with my highlights and I've double checked all my shadow areas, I'm going to leave my paper so that the highlights can dry.